Michigan State football white hot on the recruiting trail. That is 17 commits just for June alone. Who was the biggest get? Which battle was the toughest? And how could it have gotten even better?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white every single day right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your favorite 2026 commit, because with Greg Smith, now this guy ain't small potatoes. This is the Greg Smith, the national recruiting analyst over at the Rivals Network, soon to be the On3 Network. He's a little bit of all networks. This guy is all things recruiting. But Greg, let's just start the conversation right here, because as we've been talking about, it's been a really, really hot month for Michigan State football. 21 commits overall, 17 just in this month of June. Point blank, who is the best get that they got? Because for me, really quick, I got to start in the trenches. Collin Campbell, 4-star out of Arizona. But what say you? Because certainly no shortage of options here.
Man, it's tough. And first of all, thank you for having me back, man. I appreciate it. And you're correct. There are no shortage of options to think about here. But I really, and it's funny, usually I do lean towards the trenches, and I will maybe for a different topic that we're going to discuss. But I think I'm gonna go at wide receiver here with Samson Gash out of Novi, Michigan. 3-star kid, but a kid that Michigan State went toe-to-toe with Alabama for and won that recruitment, right? And so I think that's a big deal. 1, for perception. 2, because he's a very good player. And 3, because he's in state. And I think we talked about this last time, and I know that I've said it before about Michigan State, which is they've got to make inroads in the state of Michigan when it comes to landing some of these recruiting battles, or landing some of these good commits and recruits in the state, because the state always produces good talent, right? And you want those guys to start to really think about Michigan State when they're making their college choice. So Samson Gash would be my pick for now, because I think perception-wise and just getting him in the state, I think is a really big deal.
So right now, I think he's a 3-star on Rivals. And when we were talking about Samson Gash, obviously he's very impressive state record holder in the 100-meter dash. Just like, where are you guys at with ranking kids? Is there like a re-rank coming up? Not to say that Samson Gash is like, due for a guaranteed re-rank, but like just so everyone gets like on the same page of where you guys are at in evaluation. What is the next timeline for you guys?
I believe the next one, I think, is sometime in later July, I want to say. There's a lot of transition going on, as you listed when we got to jump on here. So like we're still kind of ironing out when those next updates will come. But I definitely do think that he's a guy that would be in line for consideration for a bump. You mentioned that state record holder. Those track metrics are always something that we look at. And in his case, kind of checking him out on film, he does that track speed does translate to the football field as well. So I do think that he'd be a prime candidate for a bump when that next update should come.
And I was impressed with him too, because, I just thought it was just speed, but he does have some plays where he does high point the ball pretty well as a receiver. Right. He does have ball catching abilities, certainly. And, you say that Michigan State beats Alabama for his services. There's also another wide receiver, Tyren Wortham, who visited Georgia not too long ago. So Greg, can we just parade around and say that we own Kirby Smart and Kalen DeBoer? Like, was it that easy? Or do you think one of these guys, maybe it wasn't so committable for the other school? I'll edit this part out because we want to keep things positive here, but
I'm going to go ahead. They own Kirby Smart and Kalen.
Let's go.
Let's go. That's what it is right there, right? They can't win them all, right? So it is a good thing that you get into battles with those guys, or even kids that have offers of strong interest from those schools. That's always a good sign. So that is a good thing. I have joked with people that it does feel like Jonathan Smith has gotten into a lot of battles with Kalen DeBoer over these last 2 years, to be
Yeah,
honest.
certainly.
And so I wonder, though, in a bigger picture look at that, I actually think that's a very good thing, because that tells me I view both of those coaches, DeBoer and Jonathan Smith, as really good talent evaluators. So then in that case, if you're battling with the Tide now for recruits, it's not the same as the Saban guaranteed first rounders anymore, but the Kalen DeBoer staff is a group that does a really good job of evaluating and developing guys as well. So being in battles with them, I think is a great thing.
So even just outside those SEC schools, is there another recruiting win Michigan State had this month that really caught your eye? Because they had some flips. Jordan Van from Virginia, Braden Thomas from Iowa State. I've been just talking up and down the last few weeks, even long after his commitment, that Fameitau Siale, who grows up 5 miles away from Washington. Getting that edge rusher, I think, from the Huskies program that also prioritized him, I think that was an outstanding win too. Is that your gold medal winner? Like, is there another recruiting that you really saw as very impressive for Michigan State here?
Man, that's tough, because you're right again, and this is again a very good thing that we're saying, that this was actually a difficult thing to pick. I really like Jordan Van. I saw him in the winter in 7-on-7 and liked, his movement skills, his ability to track the ball in the back end. And then you watch the film and he will come down and strike you. Like, he's the type of guy that I think can be, that hybrid defender in the back seven that so many teams are looking for now to have as like a chess piece in the defense. And so I was actually honestly surprised that he was committed to Virginia in the first place. I was like, why is this not? This is a Big Ten kid. Like, this is someone who needs to be in the Big Ten, and then it ended up with him being in the Big Ten. But I want to give a shout out though to Braden Thomas, same position, and it's a similar thing we were talking about though with the battles with Kalen DeBoer. Matt Campbell is another coach that it seems like they've gone toe to toe with a lot here too, and there is a theme developing with this, right? Because what is Matt Campbell also known for? And it's getting in on kids early, finding those diamonds in the rough that then maybe shouldn't have been diamonds in the rough, or get bumps in their recruiting rankings later, and then developing the heck out of them. So I think that if you're a Spartans fan and you're watching this, you should be very encouraged by what's happening with recruiting, not just because they had this explosion of commitments, but pay attention to who they're battling for or flipping kids away from in these recruiting battles too.
And another thing I've been banging the drum on is that, hey, right now on Rivals, Michigan State, they are ranked inside the top 25 at the time of recording, 21st in the nation. This is great. They're winning a lot of these battles. I think the stat is like they've gotten 35 kids on campus in the month of June. 21 of those kids have committed. That's well over 50%.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Isn't it? However, Greg, as you know, not a lot of 4 stars right now, and not even like a ton of highly rated 3 stars. So when signing day does roll around in December, this could get scooted back outside the top 30. Now, with that said, you could either strike that down and say, no, that's wrong. There is a shot that they could be in the top 30. Or, I know that we want to be in the top 25, the top 30. Can you still be content with this class, though? Maybe I'm setting you up for an easy answer here, but I have been trying to caution state fans that I don't think this will end in the top 30. But you still can see these wins that they've had over other staffs. You can see the talent that is on this commitment sheet and still be satisfied, even though it's not top 30. Is that correct? Is that loser talk? Should be straight. We're friends now at this point.
We're buddies. No, I think that you can. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. I do think that you can be content with around that 30 range, given where they are in the program trajectory right now.
Totally.
But then this is going to depend, right? If they have a very good season, then maybe you want to get that into the top 25, and you've got a better path to get there, because then maybe some other kids take a look at you at the end of the cycle that you then weren't going to get during the summer, right? Because as we know, with so many kids that have committed, and as I'm always writing commitment stories right now, it feels like with so many of them committed, at this point, you're going to have flips later on down the road as well. It's just going to happen, right? And so there will be kids that are going to look around when you get there. That's one path. The other one is something we have kind of mentioned before, and that is Michigan State's going to be a team, I think, where you have some guys that commit early and then they get recruiting bumps later on in their recruitment as we see their senior film. So that's also, and that's a way that people don't really talk about, but that's another way for you to continue to kind of either hold serve and stay where you are in the rankings, or even continue to climb up a little bit as your guys continue to get, kind of move up those rankings and get evaluated. And we've seen a number of their guys guys already have that. You think about Cade Kaufman and Eddie Whiting and those kind of guys who may not even be done climbing themselves. We think about them as kind of being where they're going to be, but they could continue to get, higher rankings as well.
Have you ever decided last minute to head to the game with friends, family? Like maybe it's game day. You realize, oh my God, it is incredible outside. The Tigers are white hot right now. I got to get to Comerica Park as soon as I possibly can. But one problem, I don't have any tickets. Well, guys, you know where this is going to go. It's going to go to Gametime, the greatest ticketing app out there, because it's the easiest way to grab tickets last minute and also saving a bunch of money. They are the best in the business at getting you great deals up until that first pitch, even a little after that first pitch, guys, if the mood strikes you. It is quite simple because it is just 2 taps on your phone and the tickets are sent straight to you. You don't click around 18 times, get surprised with fees at the very end. No, it is almost too good to be true with Gametime. They are the best in the business. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Cade Kaufman, if you guys want, to watch any good film, I had a 7-on-7 not too long ago. David Hards on Twitter, he tweeted out a bunch of clips of Cade Kaufman. My God, that ball just fires out of his hand like a rocket. That is a quick pop time he's got. So.
I still, this is not me playing to the audience. I still think he got screwed over by not getting invited to Elite 11. Like, I still don't understand.
Thank you.
I was at the regional that he didn't win MVP. And though Briggs Cherry was very good. And I think that he's going to continue to rise too. And Louisville and Jeff Brom got a steal there. But I thought that Cade Kaufman was clearly the second best quarterback that day. And he was pretty close to what Briggs did. So I still don't understand why he didn't get invited. And to be honest, he doesn't either. So it's pretty interesting.
I think this is good, though, because if there's anything else Michigan State fans love, it's that a player with the chip on his shoulder.
Yes.
You need that underdog mentality. Always starved for more. So this is actually good. I actually made a call to the Elite 11 Society and said, do not under any circumstance invite this kid to the finals here. So we need a starving dog on campus here. Look, let's just funnel it right into this conversation. We did touch on it, right at the start of the show, but with the re-rankings coming up sometime in July, obviously Samson Gash, sure, could he get a bump up? Anyone that you think is set for a rankings boost, not to spoil it and not to say that you are the end-all be-all here, but I'm going to ask you because, look, Greg, if you ask me, I think the Hell 21 kids should get a boost. Everyone is a sparkling diamond in my eye, but is there anyone that you're seeing as like a 3-star? It's like there's no shot that this kid's just a 3-star. He's definitely more than that.
Yeah, I do think that Samson Gash has the best shot. We've talked about him. I think that Wortham also has a pretty good shot as well. Siale, is that how you say
that's my best shot at it. Yeah,
okay, I think that there's somebody if you're looking at the defensive side of the ball too in the trenches, like I think that he's a guy that would have a shot as well. I think they've got I think honestly this is going to be a team because of the reputation that the staff has, and this happens where certain teams have certain staffs, have a reputation of finding those guys, and then we say, oh man, we better go back and rewatch the tape on some of these guys or pay attention to when that first 4 games film drops. And so, I think that they're going to have a lot of guys that get second looks later in the process.
So right now, what position group is looking best for you? I mean, offensive line, they're strapped with players right now. Wide receiver, we've talked up and down about them. What position group specifically are you looking at and saying, oh, yeah, Michigan State's going to be set for the future here with these guys?
Yeah, I really like what they've done at defensive back. And I think that the spoiler alert, if you have based on what we've talked about so far with a couple of those guys, I really think that they've got something in Jordan Van there. Uman Yora, getting him out of Atlanta as kind of a 6'2", 285-pound kid that has some length to him. Braden Thomas, who I think, he's continuing to get bigger, and he's a kid that could, end up sliding down into the second level. I like him a lot. So, I think that group in the secondary, which clearly was a need, and they've attacked that head on to make sure they get some of their priority targets. I think that to me, that's the best group with a silver medal finish probably for the offensive line.
Yeah, because the offensive line stacked. I mean, with the tackles, there's still an outbound name here. Adrian Hamilton, he's going to commit somewhere on July 5th. It's between Virginia Tech, and our Michigan State Spartans, of course. But if they could, rope that commitment in, I mean, that's a strong class. I believe that would be 5 offensive linemen. And last I checked, that's how many you play a game of football with is 5. So if you can just get the whole platoon right there in one class, woo! That's not too shabby. Now, look, we just been frolicking through the daisies right here, Greg. This has been a lot of fun. Things are going so great. Let's take out that bucket of cold water because, look, things can always get better. You can't just win championships being content with everything all the time.
That's right.
So, Greg, let's talk brass tacks here. Last time we talked, actually, a few weeks ago, it was on the heels of Kody right in Michigan State's backyard, priority running back prospect. He's going to go to Michigan State, except one problem, he committed to Kansas. So we bemoaned about that a lot. That was a pretty big miss for Michigan State. Ever since then, Greg, is there another prospect out there that has committed elsewhere that you think was a bigger miss for Michigan State than Kody? Or is Kody still standing on top of the podium as the number one guy that Michigan State missed out on, you think?
This is tough because I think I have a new number one for you, and I think it's going to be Collin Campbell, the 4-star offensive lineman out of Michigan. Just because, and I think I love those guys in the trenches. I think you have to have them, especially in this league. Like, you just are not going to be able to win a significant amount of games without having good offensive and defensive line play. And so Collin Campbell, a kid that you want to talk about a riser over this offseason, and man, the chip on the shoulder that he definitely has that, plays with a lot of fire. But he, purposely went out this offseason and went to as many camps as possible to showcase his skills and to basically beat up opposing defensive linemen. And he did exactly that. Has continued to rise up the ranks. And if you didn't know, he was down at Rivals 5-star, committed to Missouri over Michigan State. And so I think losing that kid who it would have just been a perfect addition to slide in there, give you kind of a leader for that offensive line group, give you another 4-star recruit, another in-state recruit, guy to protect Kaufman, on and on and on. That would have been a great cherry on top to the class. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him as the new number one. But Corey is a close second. But yeah, Collin Campbell, man, that's tough.
And, just like with every, highly ranked kid that goes somewhere else, doesn't pick your school, the first reaction from, the fan base is always, well, hey, we can flip him later on, right? Hey, all we got to do is just do a little bit of winning. December's a long way away. But look, any likelihood of Canty flipping, you think, or does it seem pretty Loctite with Mizzou? Because from what I understand, he is pretty tied in with Mizzou tightly. So I think this will be a tough one. Are you getting the same read on this?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to flip. I would not expect that. So yeah, I think he's pretty locked in on Mizzou. There are a lot of factors going on there. He loves the staff. I think it's a solid NIL package. I think that'll end up being the pick in the end.
So, let's just keep talking about where Michigan State could have gotten better. And we've talked a lot about this position group specifically on Locked On Spartans here. And it's running back recruiting, or rather lack thereof. We've talked Kody, of course. Nelson Wheeler, they went to him as a plan B. Okay,
kid right up the road from me. Yeah.
So you told him to commit to Illinois. Thanks a lot, Greg. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I tried to do what I could for you, man. It just didn't work out.
Got to send you a bigger briefcase next time to show up to the Wheeler household with. So Michael Dukes, he's committed to Toledo. He's from Detroit, and he flips to Rutgers, of course. They have, oh my God, I'm going to screw up it's Jamal Rule. That was the kid who commits to Nebraska after visiting Michigan State. So if you're following along at home, that's 0 for 4 in running back recruiting here. Is it truly worth losing sleep over, Greg? And I know that sounds silly because, they're empty in that shelf, but they did get some running backs last year. There's always a ton of running backs in the transfer portal. Or is this actually worth being a little concerned about if you're in our shoes right now?
I would not be concerned at all about this. Okay. I think that there are a few reasons. You hit on one of them, which is there's always a ton of running backs in the transfer portal because there are only so many carries to go around at each of these schools, and so the running back is always going to be a position where you can find guys in the portal, and that's totally fine. The other thing is I do think while some of those guys that you named were talented, part of the problem with running back recruiting this year is that I think it's a soft year for running backs overall, but it's particularly a soft year in the Midwest. So in Big Ten country, it's a weird down year for running back. And so I think it was tough for them to find a handful of guys that they really wanted to go after. There was one more, like Maxwell Warner out of Chicago was another one too. I think he had an MSU offer, but ended up at Mizzou as well. But I would not lose sleep over this. Plus, running back is a position that, as we know around football, has been a little devalued anyway. But you can affect the game more as a college running back, certainly, than an NFL one. But I don't lose sleep over this.
All right. Well, speaking of sleep, how are you feeling at the end of June right now? Are you well rested? Are you finally ready for a break here, Greg?
I am ready for a break. I'm looking at the watch right now. We got I have 3 days until vacation, so we are ready to roll. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, how about even before your next vacation, we start talking 2027 recruiting? My God, just even looking at that year, it seems like a fake year. I can't even believe that time is going by that fast. But Greg, I almost feel sheepish asking this question because you have got to be the most tired man in America right now. Yeah. How's 2027 recruiting going? Like, is it too early to think about it? Of course it isn't. But is there any indication for Michigan State right now? Are they getting good offers, good interest? Yeah. Is there a good takeaway for not next year, but 2 years from now already?
Right. I do think there is a good takeaway in that there's two things. One, I think that Michigan State did a good job of getting a lot of future underclassmen on campus during this last open period. And then going back to spring ball as well. They got a lot of guys on campus that they're going to want to see. They want to evaluate, having those camps. I think that definitely helped to get that ball rolling. I also think that they because now they have, they're in the 20s when it comes to their commitments, they can now start to shift their focus a lot more towards that 2027 class. That's the reason really why these schools want to finish off basically their recruiting class in the month of June, and then heading into July when we see the crush of commitments over the next week. It feels weird that I said the crush of commitments. We've had them nonstop these last few weeks, right? But you know what I mean? We're going to have even more happen in this next week or two. And so teams definitely want to have the vast majority of their class in. Why? So that they can really start to focus on 2027. Keep an eye on how many of those 2027 kids make it to East Lansing 4 games this fall, because that'll tell you a lot about the interest that those kids have in Michigan State. And then again, they start winning some games, stacking those wins. Aiden Childs is looking good out there. Nick Marsh is catching a couple touchdowns. Then, they'll end up, reeling in some of those guys.
2 more questions for you before we let you go and enjoy that, well-deserved vacation here. The second one will be a mailbag question about the athletic director, how they can impact recruiting. But the first one here, let's just, make another broad question. Greg, one word how Michigan State fans should feel. We should feel blank about the state of Michigan State football recruiting.
You should feel content. Okay. I think content would be a solid word there. There shouldn't be, I don't think there should be a lot of panic or worry about where things are, but you shouldn't quite be over the moon just yet, because of a couple, because we mentioned, not a lot of huge star power in the class right now. But also, but the biggest thing to be content about is that they seem to have totally have locked in Cade Kaufman. That does not seem like that's going to change at all. And I know kind of earlier in the summer, in the spring, that was a hot topic that I know I wrote about a lot, about various teams' efforts to flip him. So feel great about that, content about the overall class, and then kind of see where they go from here.
Excellent. And to round this off, and before we get to this, thanks a lot for your time and insight, man. I know, again, you're the busiest guy out there. So we're going to take this home with an email question from Sue over at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Sue writes in, why are Spartan fans commenting that we're getting all these recruits because of the new athletic director and, quote, the loosening of purse strings? What is your take on this? My thoughts are that kids don't commit because of the athletic director, and one who hadn't even started yet, most of the case. Also saying loosening the purse strings led to all these recruits committing, I feel diminishes all the relationships the coaches built with these prospects for weeks and even months. And I will say it's not like every State fan going out there and saying that new athletic director Jay Batt is the reason, but there are a few out there, and it's a loud vote minority saying that hey, this almost seems like a little too coincidental not to have something along the lines of some truth. So, like, this is an odd question. This is a rare circumstance where a new select director steps in during a June official visit season. Like, Greg, do you think there is anything to this, or is Jay Back kind of just, an afterthought in the grand scheme of things?
I do think that there is something to it. I don't think that it's like a direct correlation that like he's not at this point, he probably is not meeting with a ton of recruits or anything like that. But what can happen, because it does seem to be that the one thing that people really know about him is that he's a great fundraiser, and that the assumption is that they're going to loosen the purse string. So maybe he has told Coach Jonathan Smith, hey, listen, you can go ahead and, tell these kids that they can get a little bit extra NIL, or like you can, whatever you were offering before, you guys can go ahead and offer a little bit more, and I will back you up down the line. Like if you've given me a plan for that. So yeah, that there could, I would probably guarantee that those conversations have happened. And so, yeah, that does play a role in it. And I'm sure it definitely does not hurt. But I do think that the other part of that question was absolutely spot on, that don't allow that to then diminish what this staff has done when it comes to building relationships with these kids, and why they've had this avalanche of commitments. And another thing we have not talked about yet, but I want to make sure I mention it, is that give the staff credit too for the amount of official visitors they've had and then landed, because last year I think they struggled a little bit with that. So clearly they took some feedback, took some stock and inventory, and then turn that around quickly, right? I think that that's another good sign and something that they should, we should tip our hat to them for. But the early returns are great for the athletic director situation, and it's always going to be a combination of NIL and relationships at this point. Like I think it's overstated that you get kids just because of NIL, and I also think it's overstated that you get kids just because of relationships. It's now a combination of the two.
Brilliantly said. Yeah, it is a cocktail of both. And I think fans are, as the years go on, are more comfortable with, hey, NIL being a factor. But loosening the purse strings, don't be ashamed of that. Even if that was the sole reason, good. Pimp that out that's
right, but tell everybody. And honestly, it's great. Yeah, it's great publicity if it is. Now I'm going to go on this side tangent. Sorry,
let's go. Let's do it.
When USC and Miami and Texas and those guys, when they get accused of buying prospects and all of this, I actually low key think that all of these teams love that, because it's basically a giant sign saying we take care of our players. So if that ever becomes the case with MSU, be totally happy with that.
Yeah. Saban did it best. This was the early stages of NIL, and he said, my quarterback's making $1 million. Isn't that crazy?
Right.
Savvy son of a gun. That is well done. Way to promote that.
Good job.
In a massive billboard that, our players get paid down in Tuscaloosa. So, look, it is coaching relationships that they've built to get them in the door. And sometimes it's that NIL that puts them over the edge. But don't be ashamed, guys. Hey, purse strings are to be loosened in this era of college football. So
that is, use that TV revenue money. You got
it. Use that TV revenue money. Come on, let's make it rain here in East Lansing, guys. All right, guys, that's Greg Smith. Just does outstanding work over at Rivals, soon to be on 3, but also still part of Rivals. I don't really know myself, even though I should. It's so confusing. But, Greg, anything you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your summer here?
Nope, just keep it locked for that big merger that is coming on July 1st. It will still technically be Rivals, but we will be on 3. You'll see both logos. Just keep it locked. When you go to rivals.com, it'll redirect you to the new website. Just please keep it locked there. Think about subscribing if you so are inclined.
You're the best, Greg, and same with all the listeners, all the viewers. Love every single one of you. Now take care of yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. Go Green.